And good afternoon. Welcome into Market Talk for Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. I'm your host, Jesse Allen. A good afternoon to you once again. Thank you for joining us as always. You can find us online, markettalkag.com. That's our home on the web. You can find our social media links, all of our streaming sources, Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, as well as iHeartRadio and more. Find all the links there. Makes it real quick and easy. All of our great radio partners as well. Find them all at markettalkag.com. A risk-on day in the trade today with grains higher across the board. Cattle were lower. That was the only disappointing market of the day. We'll talk about all of it. Let's bring in our good friend John Heinberg with Total Farm Marketing joining us here on a Wednesday. John, good afternoon. How are you?
Doing well. Good afternoon to you.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, John, and we got a lot of positive things to talk about today. Overall, just seemingly, as I mentioned, a risk-on day today. A lot of factors weighing in here, but some really strong closes on the grain side of the complex today.
Yeah, definitely was. Obviously, between corn and then you got the wheat market down there pushing strongly higher. That may have been what's opening the door up here for the corn market. Let's touch on that first. Obviously, in the last week, we kind of mentioned the spring wheat and keeping an eye on that market. We did pick up a little bit of moisture in those northern plains early in the week, but the forecast continues to stay dry. Saw spring wheat contracts break to new contract highs today. And just causing some premium to move across that wheat market in general. Obviously, still watching the southern plains and what's happening there, and maybe some moisture coming in, but at the same time, overall picture still looks a little bit on a more difficult side. Crop ratings were unchanged this last week for winter wheat, and that again just helps bring some premium in. And when you see wheat move 15 to 20 cents higher, like we saw today, again that just opens the door for a corn market that's got its own stories building. So good closes today. Got new contract highs in May, July, December corn, as well as some of the other contracts. Held those into the gain. Now we'll see what export sales give us tomorrow, and what the momentum gives us going into the weekend.
Well, let's stay on the wheat track here first and dive a little bit deeper into that. You mentioned some of the weather issues, and there's a lot of weather issues playing into all of these markets, frankly, here this week. But you mentioned the northern plains, the Canadian prairies, getting some cold weather dipping into the central and southern plains as well. We got some dryness in portions of Europe to talk about, and even stripe rust problems, hearing about those in China. So overall, all three wheat markets, it seems like there is a weather issue playing into all of these markets right now.
Wheat's one of those markets where that momentum jumps in and out extremely quickly. And if we got some reason for the market to start getting bought again, like we're kind of hearing with all those things you just mentioned in terms of weather issues or disease issues out there. And it was a market that was getting pushed pretty hard here the last few weeks. In fact, managed money moved even spring wheat into a short position, not a very big one, but still was on the negative. So there's some room for that market to make a move higher. And then we also just talk about the competing grain standpoint. Does wheat become a feed replacement for corn if corn prices get too high? So obviously that brings premium into the wheat market if they don't want that to occur. And again, it just becomes a nice lift for all the grains overall. Wheat can be an anchor at the same time. It can be a sail and get things moving. So in at least this case, it feels like it's helping out the markets, bringing some buying optimism in, and it just carried through all three grains here today. We'll have to keep an eye on what's going on with China. They picked up some wheat here a couple of weeks ago. We'll see the export sales numbers tomorrow. They're got their domestic auctions, and they actually lifted their prices just to make sure they could keep some wheat supplies around too for food purposes. So if they think they got some production issues, I saw that too about the stripe disease issues there. It's going to just be interesting to see how this wheat market can play out. Before you know it, like we saw with spring wheat, we throw 50 cents onto a contract here, and boom, you got some really good value out there very quickly. And, right now, maybe we got Chicago going back to those contract highs around 670, 680. It wouldn't stop it from going through there and touching 7 real fast.
And, you mentioned wheat kind of can act as an anchor or a sail, and it seemingly, you alluded to, maybe opening up the door for this corn market here. Let's shift gears. Corn also got the Brazil Safrita corn crop weather issues that are playing into this market. But, I mean, old crop corn today almost touched $6. That's something we've been wondering if we would ever get to that point. And really just looking at this corn market after today, kind of following along with wheat, really, really strong close it looked like there, John.
Yeah, it was. It was a really good trading day. We had a strong day yesterday and just kind of faded towards the end of the day. So it was kind of set up to get a little more boost here with today's session. You know, we'll see how things go again with export sales and into the week. That'll obviously be a big concern. Are we shutting off demand? If we are, then prices might get some profit taking back tomorrow. But you mentioned the Brazilian corn crop. Now that's going to be something we're watching. Cash spot corn prices right now in Brazil are all-time record highs. It's having some impact into their livestock industry in terms of cost of feed. Had a little bit of a rumor on the internet, nothing really confirmed, but talk of Brazil buying some South American or Argentina corn, excuse me. A couple cargoes here earlier in the week. So that's going to be something we need to watch is the premium that happens with that Brazil crop. And obviously the biggest concern is now what's going to happen with that second crop. A lot of that corn, a large percentage of it came in past the ideal planting window. And as the dry season starts kicking in here towards, middle end of May, as that crop wants to start finishing out, the fact that it's been a little bit behind on moisture here at the start could only carry over and continue to give some boost to price, because that's the corn, besides what comes out of Argentina, it's really going to compete against us on the export market in the summer, and also will really tighten up the global corn supply if that crop isn't to the level that we think it needs to be.
Let's move to soybeans. They surged today as well, along with all the other ags, and bean oil sharply higher. Got some word that some EU rapeseed crops might have been damaged by cold, so that's factoring in. Palm oil is climbing once again. Those world vegetable oil markets are rising. And just looking at soybeans, old crop beans over $14 again today. Even new crop, November 1264 at the close. Bean market, we know the story. It's got the tightest stocks of all three right now. But really, this bean market, a strong day today here as well.
Yeah, the bean market kind of has been forgotten about here over the last couple of weeks. It just seems like all the energy and the news talk has been on the corn market. And, since we got that acre number, back on the USDA report at the end of the month, it just seems like the corn market's been on the front burner, and the bean market's just been hanging along here at the low, upper $13 window below 14, which really isn't a level where we need to see it in terms of rationing supplies. So it almost felt like today the market just kind of looked around and said, what are we doing here? And lifted it up quick 20 cents to get some value in. We did get the USDA number for crush for March. It came in about 177 million bushels, which was a pretty big jump over February. Now most of us follow the NOPA crush numbers there. But again, just a sign that hey, at those price levels we were dealing with through the month of March, that demand was still there. We'll see what the export sales give us tomorrow. So I'll be a little cautious there. Obviously, the market did not like the fact we had some net cancellations on Chinese beans, even though they did move some of those sales over into new crop. Realistically, given the supply tightness, a few more cancellations probably wouldn't hurt, because it's going to be easier to use the beans here in the United States and try to bring some in to fill, the holes in the center of the country. The biggest thing, we've been talking about this and watching it for all these grains, or at least corn and beans. Look at those summer basis levels. Look at that cash market. They continue to stay strong. And the futures market slid off, the cash market improved. It's just a sign that there's some concerns out there regarding supply. I'm looking at summer basis levels for beans that are well over the market in some regions, and that just tells you that they are very concerned of where we could be. So, we talked about corn finally getting to $6. That, to me, it's more been about when we finally get to $6. We're trying to get there this week. Same thing might be true with those old crop beans. Now we get back above 14, maybe we see some more money flow come in as long as the news stays friendly. We've been saying that beans should push up into the $15, $16 handle. Maybe over the next handful of weeks, that might be something that's on the cards, especially, like I said, as long as the news stays friendly.
I want to talk about a couple other things as well. Looking at ethanol reports here for this week. Fresh 5-month lows, 20.5 million barrels in the week ending April 9th. Also looking at production slipped to 941,000 barrels per day. But, you tie that in with corn, you tie that in with basis levels and cash prices, getting a lot of corn starting to move back to ethanol plants. It sounds like, just from what I'm hearing. Is that what you're hearing, John, even though with the lower production numbers this week?
Yeah, that's what we've been hearing as well. Actually, you talk on the countryside, some of the strongest basis levels out there are what the ethanol plants are putting forward. And, and realistically, their margins are dramatically improved. You go look at the futures market for ethanol futures on the board of trade, we're trading at the highest level since December of 2014. So there's some good value there. At the same time, you got the feed component side that's there, adding value in terms of DDGs and coming off that ethanol product. And then we're also just looking at a global market that may have some more export demand in it. We were talking a little bit about, or saw a little bit what Brazil was working on there. They're usually a sugar-based ethanol. They've moved to a heavier corn-based. Actually, corn ethanol was up 58% year over year last month. Again, just showing signs that sugar prices were high and they wanted to move some more bushels that way. Again, creating more demand into a tight market. So that's probably helping out. And then you just watch here in the United States. Again, what's going on with those basis levels out into June and July. Those ethanol plants are trying to secure bushels because they know there's some profitability there. Stockpiles are at multi-year lows, not counting the drop from last year when we shut things down. And it's a situation here that demand's improving, hopefully, as we continue to get into the summer months and see more summer driving, as well as the export side. I said it last week. I still think ethanol could still be a little bit of a sleeper in terms of the demand side of the market going forward into the summer.
Another thing I think to watch as well, crude oil, in regards to with ethanol stocks, and crude oil fell by 5.9 million to 492.4 in the week ending April 9th. We've seen crude oil higher here today. I think that might be another market to watch as well and see how that influences grains moving forward.
Yeah, crude oil, can act as the leader in all the commodity sector overall, and we're trading $2 plus higher today off that energy information report today, and seeing those tighter stockpiles. So again, yeah, crude kind of got a bit of a rough go for a couple of weeks there. Looks like it's trying to find some bottom here, and now maybe working itself back higher. Again, it's kind of tied to the same things. We're getting through COVID, restrictions are loosening, we're seeing more driving, we're seeing more usage in terms of energy usage. And again, that can just provide support across the entire commodity space.
Let's talk livestock, lean hogs. You and I touched on this last week. We talked about maybe this hog market's maybe finding a top. We were seeing some down days there, and now we come back in here and we're starting to find some fundamental strength again, it looks like, in this hog market. What are you seeing there after we work through midweek?
Well, when Monday came around, we had a technical reversal on that chart. We had June hit up a little over the 110 window, finished the day significantly lower, put a bit of a what we call a bearish hook reversal into the charts. We pushed down for another day, and then, like you said, the fundamentals actually really never went anywhere, but they kind of just showed up again as things got a little bit cheaper. We saw a little jump in carcass values yesterday, up $5 plus at midday, finishing the day 260 higher, a little more strength on those carcasses again today. Cash market is not going anywhere. The cash hog index is trading and it's going on its 12th consecutive week higher. So it shows you what's happening with the cash market. I think a lot of this is due to the fact that the April contract is coming off on Friday. We're probably seeing some movement around out of that contract into the other positions. Now we'll see what happens. Now, I thought we'd maybe go down and fill that price gap we have on the June contract around 103.50 area. That would have helped firm up the charts very nicely if that would occur, but we didn't even get there. We saw a little bit of a turn yesterday, some good follow through today. Now the key is what happens with export sales tomorrow? How do we finish out the week? Can we get back through that reversal high at 110, and I believe it's 7.5 cents, just close above that? That'll negate another reversal on the hog charts, and that points us higher. Now, I'm still holding some targets up there. I'm in the 120 plus window on June hogs if the fundamentals stay active.
Well, let's talk cattle. That was the lone loser on the day, Wednesday, John. And looking at this cattle market, it seems like feeders, especially weighing down live cattle as we struggle with higher corn prices here. And live cattle maybe still have a little hope this week. We haven't seen a lot of cash trade yet. What is your thoughts on the cattle market?
Yeah, cash trade's absolute standstill so far this week. We have Fed Cattle Exchange today. Bids 120.5 to 126. No trades completed. Didn't hit any of the reserve prices. They're going to try to run another sale tomorrow, so we'll see if that helps out at all. Countryside bids are still absent. I think the Packers are trying to see if they can get a little bit of a lowball bid because of the market being down on the futures side. But then here we go with retail values again today. We're a couple bucks higher on choice carcasses, trading 272. On choice carcasses, 260 on select. That puts a lot of margin out there for the Packers to go ahead and make some bids higher. right now the feedlots are holding firm. Actually, they don't even have anything to compete against. So 125, maybe some 126. We'll see where we can get to this week. Now that'll be, in my mind, it'll be the turn in the market if we do get those cash bids. We're seeing slaughter numbers down slightly this week, so that means the Packers are going to need to step up here in the next couple of days and maybe firm those bids up. Now, if that happens, you'll have to see how the market plays out. We've been running about a $3 premium over cash, and as the way it's kind of happened this week, now we're running about a $3 discount. So we'll see if we can kind of get that premium back in that market. So to me, it's all going to be about cash trade, what happens over the next 48 hours here going into the end of the week, and see if we can get this market turning higher. Biggest thing is we're holding trend line support. You got a nice up channel that we've been building since October underneath this, definitely this June contract. We're sitting on that bottom of that channel right now, and if we get the right news, I think we work itself back to the top.
John, overall final thoughts here for today. Any new advice or any changing advice for producers for any of their marketing plan right now as they're getting into spring planting and getting into a very busy time of the year?
I do want to quickly shift over to that milk market today. We had a little bit of news today that really put the hammer on that market. And we had a good run. We hit $20 on the May contract yesterday afternoon, and we got an announcement today by the USDA that the Farmers to Family Food Box program is no longer. So we don't know what's going to happen in terms of the funds that were put towards it with the aid package in December and the current aid package now. But that fact that the government is kind of out of the market, we saw milk go limit down today. We're down about 70 cents off those, or about 80 cents off the high from yesterday on the May contract. So something that we'll have to see. There's some money earmarked out there that's supposed to come into the food system and help with food aid. We'll see how that plays out. But I know that Farmers Family Food Box program was a big key. So, producers, you had some opportunity to get some things covered out there in that milk market. Kind of disappeared, but there's still some pretty good value there. Make sure we're paying attention. We do have a milk production report next week on Thursday. So we'll have to see what's going on. So $18.50 plus milk to the mid-year might be something to make sure we're looking at, especially if that negative news stays in the marketplace overall. Looking at the markets in general, you got a lot of good value in a lot of these different commodities out there, as we just saw with milk today. All it takes is one news headline, and we see the money quickly rip to the sidelines. These are different markets than we dealt with even 5-6 years ago in terms of how the money is flowing in and out quickly. And you got to take advantage of that somehow, whether it's making those sales and keeping some ownership in, or just constantly keeping some type of base underneath this thing. So if you wake up and we have a limit down day in grains or a limit down day in the livestock market, you're not kicking the dirt going, boy, I wish I would have.
Well, John, if producers need a little advice, a little help, I know they can reach out to you and the team at Total Farm Marketing. Got a lot of great resources on your website, and of course, just by giving you guys a phone call.
Yeah, I love chatting with them. Give me a call, 800-334-9779. Shoot me an email at johnh@totalfarmmarketing.com. And like I said, check out that website. A lot of great sources out there at totalfarmmarketing.com is the address. And again, like I said last week, times are, markets are moving fast. Times are extremely difficult and somewhat stressful because when prices get here, you don't want to miss out. Make sure you're keeping as much information and ideas and, have those conversations with people. Keep that in front of you so you can keep your marketing plan fresh, and it may change on a daily basis.
Well, John, appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us on a Wednesday, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Jesse. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.
John Heinberg with Total Farm Marketing, our guest today here on Market Talk. Find us online, markettalkag.com. This has been the Wednesday, April 14th edition of Market Talk. Have a great afternoon.